Scotia and welcome. My name is Dawn Beaton. Thanks for joining us here at the Centre for Cape Breton Studies at Cape Breton University. We're excited this week to welcome Gaelic singer, composer, storyteller and educator Goiridh Dòmhnullach. He is one of a musical Cape Breton family, the Dougal MacDonalds, originating in Queensville, Inverness County. Goiridh had the opportunity to learn from some of Cape Breton's best tradition bearers. He was influenced by traditional musicians on both sides of his family. Goiridh prefers to sing in the traditional style he learned from the singers of his native Bray na Haine. Goiridh has performed in Scotland, Ireland, the US and Canada. He and his young son, Patrick, often sing together. So stay tuned for some great tunes, conversation and more as we celebrate Cape Breton Island's living Celtic culture. And thanks for joining us. I'm Dawn Beaton, and today we're here with Gaelic singer, composer, storyteller, and educator Goiridh Dòmhnullach. Hi, Goiridh.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Oh, good. So, tell me a bit about yourself. Where are you from? Who's your father?
My father? I'm Goiridh Mach Gawasturgul Handy and Patrick, which is Goiridh, son of Alec Dougal, Sandy, Ian, Patrick. Come from Kingsville, and the name of the place is Bray na Haine in Gaelic. Southern Inverness County.
Good part of the world.
Good part of the world for sure.
Lots of good things come out of that.
The best.
And you have a bit of a drive every day. You tell me what you do and who you work for.
I work for Gaelic Affairs. I'm the Gaelic Field Officer for Gaelic Affairs, and we are a branch of the Nova Scotia Department of Communities, Culture and Heritage, and we have 3 offices. One is in Halifax, one in Mabo, and one in Antigonish, and I'm in the Antigonish one, so I'm on the road a lot of times, be it to Antigonish or wherever else I'm travelling around to do my thing for Gaelic.
Yeah, and you're, like I said, you're a great educator and have done great work, and I've been in some of your Gaelic courses and have really learned a great deal from your style of teaching as well, and your patience besides. Want to give us a little sample of some Gaelic? Yeah,
I'm just going to tell you once again my name, where I'm from, and that I speak Gaelic every day, and that I have a 12-year-old son who's a native Gaelic speaker, so you'll know what the language sounds like. Smisha Goiridh Dòmhnullach, ha mi a Bray na Haine, agus be mi Bray na Gaelic a hulawa, agus ha mach gacam Bhil Patrick, agus sé firwawar stúchas a chaun in Patrick.
Yep, there's such a sound and such a guttural feel to it.
Some folks when I be singing in that, they'll be singing even if they don't understand a word of what I'm singing, that it touches something, and you hear that often even with people just overhearing Gaelic being spoken.
Yes.
And I don't know if there's any basis in this, but what I tell people is that I think it's for ourselves, it's in our DNA in a way, and it's kind of, it resonates with the soul or whatever, that when you think of it, our people have been speaking Gaelic since there was a Gaelic, and Gaelic goes right back to possibly as far back as 6,000 years, would be the origins of it, what linguists call Proto-Celtic, and all the Celtic languages came from that. And like 2,500 years ago, there was Celtic languages and culture all the way from what's now Turkey, all across Europe to the west of Ireland and that. So it's kind of a miracle that these things are still around, and especially in Nova Scotia and especially Cape Breton, where it's still a language within homes and within communities. It's the only place outside of Scotland and Ireland where Gaelic is still kind of an everyday language.
Right.
And it's if you know the history of it, and of the oppression against and the marginalisation against the Gaels, it's a miracle that that it's here at all now.
Yeah, in 2014. Yeah. But I mean, there's been so much great work that's been done, the likes of certainly having the Department of Gaelic Affairs, but what's being done at College in the Gaelic and educators like yourself and Lewis. I mean, it's really been...
It boils down to individuals, and you got some folks that were plugging away at it in the 1970s in that day, and like with the early 70s, and a lot of credit should be given to those folks because Gaelic society started going downhill. It was at its largest extent in Scotland about 1,000 years ago that all of Scotland was Gaelic speaking. Right. Most believe that the language originated in Ireland and came over to the west of Scotland in the 500s, 400s and 500s, and that over the next few hundred years it spread to become the culture of all of Scotland, right? Well, the church on River Dennis Mountain, St. Margaret of Scotland, most people don't know she was an Anglo-Saxon princess, and she was married to a Gaelic king, and he was the last Gaelic king to keep his court and the way that he ruled in the Gaelic system, because at the same time the Normans were coming through England and that, and came into Scotland, and gradually Gaelic lords lost their lands to Norman French lords and that, and what became Anglo-Norman lords. So the higher culture in one sense, and like I said, the governing of the people became feudal, and a lot of people don't know, but for 2 or 3 generations the King of Scots was ruling the elite and all that through the French language, and then it became the English language and that. So with her time, the political system changed. The church, the Gaelic church, was getting less and less prestige and support as she brought in orders of like Benedictines and that more continental European wing of or slant of Christianity kind of thing, which differed from the Celtic churches and that. And when you have that happen with the people, that the highest levels, government and church, starts switching language, then eventually that goes down into the people themselves. So Gaelic went from being the language of Scotland 1,000 years ago to English getting stronger and stronger in what's the lowlands now. And then around the 1400s you got a real kind of a cultural split, 14 and 1500s, where the Gaels were kind of looking down their nose at these English speakers, that they're lower because they speak this language, and the English speakers were doing the same things to the Gaels, right? And especially in what was being said by the English speakers, the Gaels started being viewed as the other and savage, barbaric, and all this kind of stuff. So right from the early 1600s, for sure, there was legislation put in place to stop Gaels from being Gaels. So that's 400 years ago of legislated persecution against the people and the language. So it's a miracle that this is still going on. And as part of our work, we only have a small staff with Gaelic Affairs. But we've got an awfully big job because we're trying to reverse damage that was hundreds of years in the making.
No pressure.
Well, and the first step of it is hearts and minds. The first thing is to kind of sell it to the children and grandchildren of Gaelic speakers themselves that there's importance in these things, and that keeping their own identity is something that's going to strengthen them, and they're going to get an awful lot of fulfillment out of it and that. And I often talk about these people that have been plugging away at it. It's only within the last 6 years or so that we've seen a swing in attitude, a very positive swing in attitude. And as I say, there's just that many more people getting involved and doing their bit. And 20 years ago, we never dreamed of the likes of that happening, eh? And there's a lot of, before that, there's a lot of heartache involved, that you've got this great gift. You want to give it to people. And it's like if I had a key and I said, if you go into that room, some of the best things you're ever going to experience in life are in that room. But the key is the language. And if you said, yeah, that's fine, no, I'm not interested in that. And I'd say, but it's awesome. And then the next time I come back to you and I say, here's the key if you want like that. And you say, no. And then the third time I come back to you and say, look, will you leave me alone? I just don't want to do it.
Well, so that gives me a sense of what you do, like day to day with the Department of Gaelic Affairs. Like you say, you're instructing, you're teaching, you're passing on the language.
We're all about awareness and motivating people to start doing their own things, and then how can we work within government for the services that are in government? How can we spread that to the community? Yes. How can we help people within their own communities do their own things? And my job in particular is I work more so with advanced learners and kind of bring them up language-wise, and then those of that group that are interested in instructing, I help them then to just improve instruction skills and that as well.
Yeah. So we're coming up on Gaelic Awareness Month in May here, and what if people want to get involved and partake in some of the activities, where should one find out about that kind of event?
If they just Google the Office of Gaelic Affairs or Gaelic Affairs, and from our website, you'll be able to. We've got a new website coming up, I think, next month, and you'll be able to access a list of events for Gaelic Awareness Month, and as well, if you're interested, we have a weekly media monitor report, and that keeps people abreast of. There's an events list in that as well. Yeah.
That's great. I wanted to just touch on a song that you and Brian had worked on together, and I remember before I worked at the festival, October was coming around, and our Celtic Colours compilation CD was out, and I had people telling me, oh my God, you have to buy the CD just for this song. And it was a song that you had done with him, Tawa na Benya Gorama. And it's about where you're from. And really, the chance to kind of come together with Brian to work on that was because of Joella and Celtic Colours. So maybe you could enlighten us about the song and how that came together.
A little aside to that is I had a conversation with my late cousin Dougie, fiddler, and he used to compose a lot of songs. And I was telling him of a stretch over Newfoundland when I was studying over there that I went like 3 days and 3 nights I wasn't able to sleep. And I said the funny thing was all of this poetry started coming into my head and that, and I made like 3 songs in the time. And he said, that's if you want to produce, go without sleep for a while, and just it's almost like your subconscious is taking over. And for the air of that song, I had been teaching that week at the Gaelic College, and I knew it was sometime in the summer, I think it might have been earlier summer, and I knew that Brian was coming over. Yes. And I said to myself, I want to have some kind of a foundation ready anyway so that we can build on that, because I hadn't met him before. And then I taught at the Gaelic College that week, and I was fairly exhausted on the drive back home Friday evening, and then this air just came into my head as I was driving along. So I actually stopped at Vise in Waikagama, and I went on the payphone and called back home to leave it on the answering machine because I thought I might forget it from here to home.
Oh, that's right.
So I had that for a foundation, and then when I met Brian, and I love the opportunity to meet people like that. It's like kindred spirits, that the language and the culture is that special to them as well. And we met at Highland Village, I think, and then we were tossing around some ideas, and then I said, well, by the way, I've got this air in my head. What do you think? And I just hummed it for him, and he said, yeah, that's good, we'll go with that. So then for the theme, it's the Blue Mountains Lullaby, and in Kingsville and Queensville and Glendale, there's the mountain, you'll see it if you're travelling the Trans-Canada in a ways from the highway. And I was just thinking, what would the mountain's perspective be of our people started coming in the late 1790s to that area, and that there wouldn't have been much other than nature there first, and then how the mountain would have heard singing because people used to sing all the time as they worked, and the sound of the axes because they needed the axes to clear the land, and then how the mountain, by the way, adopted them, kind of thing. They were the mountain's foster children, and the mountain would have seen this community come alive, right? And the population going up and that, and a very rich culture with it and everything. And then sadly, since the 50s and that at least, or at least the 60s, the population dropping down. And it would have heard the Gaelic language a lot less and heard the English language a lot more. And we're still at the point where the population is still decreasing in that day. So the last verse of it is that if you stand in the graveyard at home, and I was in there last night to wish my uncle a happy birthday.
Wow.
Do you remember Donny Dougal?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it was his birthday yesterday. And anyhow, the mountain looks very much like Lochaber, Scotland from there, if you're standing there.
Yeah.
So that, in my mind, I was seeing that the mountain is, by the way, guarding. It's not guarding, but you know how with wakes they used to sit up all night?
Yes.
Right, and it's called a caddish.
Yeah.
A caddish, so the mountain is a caddish. The foster children that are buried there, like keeping an eye kind of thing.
Yeah, That's really powerful and nice. I think it goes to show just that respect we have for the previous generations and the elders and those most close to us.
Yeah.
It's really important we always do that.
Brian had helped me with alterations to the air and all that kind of stuff, and then I think we were going to meet up the next day, and I knew I had to kind of produce, and I just sat down with a piece of paper, and I find if you're in the right zone, it's almost like you don't compose a song; it composes itself.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
It's just you're the conduit for it.
Yeah, things will fall in the right place and that, and sometimes it's if you get the pressure on, it works better. When Dougie died, I knew I'd be singing at his funeral, and I really wanted to honour him with a song. And 2 nights before the funeral, I just put a piece of paper on the kitchen table, and I just paced back and forth, and within about 45 minutes I had the song done or something like that. Yeah,
wow.
Just kept running ideas through and that, and I based it on an old 1700s song, a lament.
God, that's great. Well, speaking of all these great songs, I would love to hear you sing True and Through.
Sure, yeah.
Thanks so much, Goiridh.
Benach leib a charsten san natje geleid, ha mi nishker fakel chatjen vorach feim. Chanel calak waarom ma ver ganse spees, bonach mim wees der feren ser spree. Get nach jan mi jatjach trouw, kort na boen, a vorach rim vaden ten sen opper groei. Gaan ich min dras ter skasen nog, grauna fed mi straatje macher waar gewoon. Han commerce middag sjouw a grodde keur, te liesje parber oere kan roni. Horst ja groei charge get a passage deur, smorgen berlen pijek na weer afse goed. Horst ja groe jaunach gannen kare grein, tuk in os a karin fawais in gandal, hai ere watuk sa kud shiulen nars, said me tower chargut an velekach. Gur me se vakke braunach tower borste vaak, vakken moch gauwig farm bachar gant ha. Geraun a heini horn, churin kew an nars, lik mo holen chow de schappen naun a char. Halifax a stuur sin jede choers an year, nur hoog sin a shiuri choin je shivish nie. Daur je gogoonje vairi ta hiet, gus a roi movig stara te veer. Der rannig sin a hinsin vatji man an poa, chaesig an skipper down an chesawa. Fig sin nar sin a curar keen fo scar, soor sin mar an mevig dawer cheers a vain. Sully veilig balle, gure opper groei, die ounce vatten, san chenja man cursuas. Suas E man tratach cas me hech so Schatjeetje ne gassers te verstuit de goe Rome wat de green Rome wat de green Rome wat de green Bat de bach woordach nach kur skis.
You can learn more about Goiridh's work at the Office of Gaelic Affairs at novascotia.ca/OGA. I'd like to take this time to thank our sponsors who have been so gracious to assist us in the production of this podcast. Imagine studying music on a beautiful island known for its deep roots in music and culture. Cape Breton University offers a music program like no other in Canada. With an emphasis on traditional and popular music, CBU's music major provides an exciting alternative to conservatory-style classical or jazz music programs. Their course offerings are unique. The music theory courses are aimed at the needs of contemporary musicians and help you understand the music you play. In the applied music courses, you get to study with teachers who have worked with names like the Bear McNeils, Ashley McIsaac, and Natalie McMaster. Through work placements, you will gain experience in the music field tailored to your interests, whether it's studio experience, promotion, tourism, or artist management. Through the optional business minor, you can add smart, real-world management skills to the creative talent you develop. The ethnomusicology focus lets you explore local traditions, popular song, as well as music and dance from cultures all over the world. Their issues-based courses will immerse you in the debates that shape music today.
Cape Breton Island has magical effects. Your ears will delight. Your legs will walk through time. Your eyes will fill with wonder. Your arms will embrace. Your heart will never leave.
Shema,
Happily.
tell me about the song.
It was composed by, there was a family of MacKinnons that lived in Melford, which is just north of Glendale. And I'm not sure of their names of the composers, and I'm not sure of the name of the brother who composed that song. But it was composed anywhere between the mid-1800s to the end of the 1800s, and he's talking about how he more or less couldn't get a girl because he didn't have a farm and didn't have stock of his own. They were just looking materialistic, that they were looking for that stuff. And anyways, what he did was walk from, if you're driving in the Trans-Canada, you'll see MacKinnon Road.
Yes.
And that's where, down that road is where this bunch came from. And he walked from there to the gut of Canso,
Wow.
and Productsbury is known as Ungut in Gaelic, from the gut of Canso.
Okay.
And in the song you'll hear I mentioned Ship Harbour. That was the old name for Productsbury. He walked in to get a job on a sailing ship there.
Yes.
And I learned it from one of my favourite Gaelic singers, Johnny Unishvik, Johnny Williams,
Yes.
from Melford. He died just a couple of years back, and he was almost like a kind of a blues singer. He would be in the zone all the time, and there was no singer I've ever heard was as individualistic as this guy, and it's like he'd be more nasal in his style and that, and extremely good. Anyhow, he told the story of that the guy had composed the song walking in, right? But maybe he started the song in because he also talks about sailing to Halifax and sailing to the West Indies and that.
Yeah.
So it would have been maybe a song that was started then, and talking about the ship having sail and steam, so that kind of dates it in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of clues there.
Yeah.
I'll kind of lead in with the big question, and we can talk a little bit about how Gaelic is transferred on to the next generation, and your son is a prime example of that. But why Gaelic is important to you, and was it your first language, or this is something that you've absorbed.
I wish I could say that it was my first language and that, and there's a part of me that really minds that I'll never be able to say that. That for what this stuff means to me, I'll still have to say, well, I'm a native speaker of English, kind of thing. That's where I'm so proud with my son. He's a native speaker of Gaelic and of English. He got the two, so his language is almost bilingualism, and that's how his brain would operate.
Right.
But as a kid myself, my first exposure was my father, and he grew up in a Gaelic-speaking household. But there was one old man who lived with them when Dad was very young, and he was the fellow that changed the whole language scene in the house. In that he probably didn't have much English, so Dad's parents would have been speaking Gaelic all the time with this fellow, right? But once he died, it was mainly English that they'd speak to the kids and that. But Dad exposed me just to phrases and that when I was younger. And I can remember one time in particular, Father Rankin always used to have the Gaelic Mass in the mountain, the church on the mountain, St. Margaret of Scotland, every August. And there was a woman from the community, and I only knew her as the community name was Mrs. Dan MacLeod. She used to do the Gaelic reading, and I can remember, like, you know yourself in youth, not too many memories hop out at you.
Yes.
But I do remember being in the church there when she was doing the reading and something clicking in me and saying, that's our real language, and that's who we're really, and I was like 4 or something like that. And we also speak English on top of that, so that always kind of stuck with me. And then I was very lucky at the age of 9. A couple moved next door to us, and it was John and Jill Shaw, and John was still one of the top Gaelic scholars in the world.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing with that, they were really good friends for a 9-10-year-old boy in that day, and I used to go over and visit them regularly, and he had Gaelic song sessions with us with the neighbours and that. Right. And the interesting thing about that is through the years he really opened up my eyes, because if you don't have the language, you don't know who else has it.
Right.
And you don't know how well they have it or what they have in that. Are they singers? Are they good historians? Are they very comical in the language and that? Like my grandmother would say things in Gaelic, and other women, older women, that they'd never say in English.
Right.
It's like a different world. So he really opened up my eyes as to that much more, that, you know what, up until the 60s, Breton was a Gaelic place predominantly, and even within a span of 15 years, for when I was young and coming along, I was surrounded by Gaelic speakers I didn't know they were, because the language shift had taken place, that I was just hearing them speaking mostly English to each other and that.
Yeah.
But I would say the combination of that, and we grew up in a family where my dad's a good step dancer, and my mom really kept music to us. She used to get us to practice songs at the piano and that, and we'd perform in concerts and that. Yeah. And then her father was a fiddler, used to play for dances back home. And then on Dad's side, the McDonalds, I had 2 uncles that were fiddlers, Donnie and Francis Dougal, and Anna Dougal was a fiddler as well. Yeah. And then my oldest aunt, God rest her soul, she died last October, Kathleen. She used to play guitar, like the kind of slide guitar, accompanying the fiddle. Yeah. And then Dad was the step dancer. So we really got a good dose of music. It came mostly from Dad's mother's side of the family, McCacherns. And Alec Francis McKay was telling me that in that wing of the family, the original settler was this Gillespie Ban from Arisig, Scotland. And he'd be an ancestor of Big Raoul McClellan, and the McClellan trio, and same line for Jackie Dunn, Glenn Graham's in that line, and Oliver Sells, and Alec Francis himself. And Alec Francis was saying that's where the main source of music came from there down. So grew up with that, and another very important part is we grew up on a farm, and like you're making hay off the land and growing animals on the land. So all of that gave us a real solid sense of place. Yes. And that's why I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, and of the 4 of us, 3 are actually living on we've got our the original family home, and then 3 other homes of where we're staying there that we're very rooted to it. Yeah. And I try to instill that in my my son as well. Unfortunately, my son lives in Miramichi, New Brunswick most of the time, but I lay it on thick when he's in Breton. Here's where you're from, and I do little things, little ceremonies almost to strengthen that.
Yeah.
Like last year, we climbed up to the top of Vaingadam to almost kind of conquer it and look out over all the land below and give them the history of who settled where and when it came, because I really wanted to be a part of him in that.
Yeah.
And language-wise with him, it's at the point where we almost couldn't speak. We could not speak Gaelic to each other.
Right.
And I know that because I tried to teach him a lesson and punish him for misbehaving one time. And for the evening, I wouldn't speak Gaelic to him. And it was very difficult, because as soon as I would not only look at him, but even think, he'd be in the next room and think to talk to him. And I'd start in Gaelic and I'd have to stop and put it in English instead.
Wow.
And it really shows you the depth of language, eh? And that's where it's a hard battle for people that aren't already in there, because you've got to hit them in that place. You've got to hit them in the soul, kind of thing, to turn something on there. And when you have arguments of economics and things like that it's going to create jobs, it's going to be more money for the economy and that kind of stuff, that's definitely good in a way, because you need to provide opportunities for, if somebody's in love with this stuff, that they've actually got a job as well, and that they can have the extra things in life and that. But that to me only goes so far, and you've got to hit them at this intangible, almost spiritual, silent level.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that Gaelic really offers. When we look at this world, right, there's an awful lot broken. It's a very broken system. It's based on the wrong priorities. It's based, even in my life, I've got things based on the wrong priorities, and not just Gaelic, but a lot of cultures that are closer to heritage, closer to the land, and all this kind of stuff. They can break through this fog almost that people have,
Right.
and they can bring them closer to the truth.
Right.
And I think if we can engage with people at that level, I honestly think it's going to retain more young people than a lot of other of the bigger ideas that have come and gone.
Right.
I've done the McMurray thing myself, and I was doing scaffolding, so it was like exercising all day, and you feel great physically in that.
Yeah.
And it was good for the bank account, but would never be home and that. And you really see out there what money can do. In a way, and I didn't see it as a great thing when things are so based on that. And when I look at back home, where we got just even the natural beauty, but we also got the beauty of how people care for one another and that. I think people should try and work out a kind of a balance sheet. What price do you put on being able to go and visit your mother or your father and have your children spend time with them in that day, and even just have that sense of belonging in that. And like I say, in McMurray, you got the neighbour's house is that far away from you, as opposed to having a beautiful river or the ocean or a mountain in front of you and that. And folks got to start thinking more on those kind of things.
That's good advice. Yeah, you can't put a price on it. It's just invaluable. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
They're and I don't mean to be running down anybody, but they're taking it for granted in a way. And I was saying, people, for this experience of being from somebody from here, people would pay $1 million.
Yeah.
And yet the people who already have it, they've got the attitude of, when can I get the heck out of here and get into real life, kind of thing, eh?
We've got good things here, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm blessed.
Maybe just to kind of finish off, maybe you could teach us a couple of phrases or something we can use or create that daily ritual, and what can we do to live the spirit of the Gael?
Yeah. I'll give you a couple of phrases, but before that I'd like to recommend, I've spoken to you before about a great article that I read. It was some natives from, I forget whether it was Quebec or Ontario, and they were invited to a Congress of Indigenous people down in South America, and they were asked by these people, what makes you Indigenous?
Right.
How do you keep being you, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And they were saying, we had to question that. How do we prove this every day, kind of thing? And what the answer was in the article is bring identity and bring ceremony into your everyday life kind of thing. Celebrate particular days that are special to your people, or like it can be seasonal things. Like do our own people know that Halloween is the ancient Celtic New Year, and that day,
right.
that it's ours kind of thing. And
Right.
there's so many things. Hockey. What is hockey but playing Camanach on ice, right? Our ancient sport and that. And there's a lot of stuff that's already there that we just got to bring awareness to. But if people can bring little things, like even my dad when I was younger, he'd always be jigging fiddle tunes, and he'd go into the Royal Bank in Hawkesbury, and it would be like this. I just not even thinking it, and then I realised if I'm driving with fiddle music playing in the rig like that, I'm walking around for the rest of the day, and the stuff is going through your head. There's that kind of stuff. There's the kind of foods that you choose and that.
Yeah.
Yesterday was an anniversary of the Battle of Culloden. Watch. There's lots of history and documentaries on YouTube and that.
There's great stuff on there.
Yeah, to bring people up on that. And one thing is where it's a battle for us in a way is that language is immense to teach. And it's one situation if you went to France to learn French, you're surrounded by it, right?
Yes.
God help us. I hope we do get to that point sometime with Gaelic and that you can go into certain homes and communities and all that you'll have that. But we're not there yet. So you got people that are taking 2 hours of Gaelic in a week, and it's just going to be such a long, drawn-out process if they don't do the extra things to bring the language in, like even playing the Gaelic radio from Scotland in the background as they do their housework or what have you, or drive the car.
That's a great one.
So in one sense, for I want anybody to learn the language, but it's almost like I want them to get a good foundation first.
Yes.
And then usually, like I said, the hearts and minds, that's going to swing a good number of people over to, you know what, I'm going to make the time. I'm going to make the priority. So rather than watching the half an hour sitcom, I'm going to work on my Gaelic for the next half hour or something like that. And another, so you've got to put major time into it. But another thing is, if you don't, most of the people of the age group that can be get fluent and become the parents of children and all that, they're the busiest people in our society, right? So for some people it's a matter of, I've got to put that off, I'll do it in 2 or 3 years' time and that. But instead of an all or nothing kind of thing, even if folks simply tried to learn one phrase a day, or at the worst one phrase a week or something like that, they can do that. So I'm kind of drawing a blank as far as what phrases.
I'm gonna.
What would you like for phrases?
That's a good one. Let me think now. What should we? Certainly how we address. You would say Kimina Hashiv. You're older than I am, so I need to give proper respect, I suppose, and say just a tiny bit older. So I would say Kimina Hashiv, correct?
Yeah.
And maybe in response, I would say Hami Gama, Hami Han Takra Sodom. I'm starting to get a little hungry.
Yes, yeah.
What are other things?
One that I use as a response for people is just Hami Kumashach.
Okay.
Hami Kumashach.
Hami Kumashach
means I'm okay.
Okay.
And it's a simple phrase, but it brings in something with Gaels. If you were saying I'm great, right, then you're opening the doors to bad luck to come in and almost put you in your place, kind of thing. Yeah, Gaels are traditionally very protective. Like once the sun goes down, you don't wish for anything, right? Because then dark forces can give you what you want that you might pay for and that, or you see a beautiful baby, and what do we do in Western culture and especially North American culture? We see a beautiful baby and we say, oh my God, that baby's just gorgeous, and we praise, right?
Yes.
Very bad idea in Gaelic, because it could be evil forces or the fairies or whatever like that gonna they're getting their curiosity piqued as far as what's so special about this child. So if you looked at a child and you said, oh, that's a beautiful little girl or something like that, right away you'd have to say, God bless her.
Okay.
right? You're closing that
Protecting.
bad luck door and that.
Right.
But yeah, they were very paranoid of if you got a new car, and I said that's an awesome car. That would actually almost be an insult to you because why did you give me all this bad luck?
Oh, you're making me challenge everything now.
What you
That's
got
good.
what you
I know
got to
I know
remember,
it.
we in this generation are Gaels, but we really got to question what percentage of us in our outlook and in life and all that, what percentage of us is Gaelic in the way that we act, in the way that we perceive things, compared to our grandparents, compared to our great-grandparents, right? The more you get into this stuff, you realise it's a totally different worldview and that. And that's one thing that can leave ones like myself kind of lonely at times because you realise I'm seeing things, I'm thinking things that not everybody else is on that day. Trying to think of another phrase you can use for Gaelic Awareness Month.
Sure.
It's just simply Suas E. Gaelic.
Suas
E. Gaelic, up with Gaelic. I'm kind of drawing a blank for phrases. One thing I'm noticing with Celtic Colours and that over the past 10, 12 years, you know yourself, when an audience is made more of our own people from here, you'll get more of the right timing of tunes from that. You'll get the yip and this kind of stuff going on.
Yes.
And I find with crowds that come forward, they're really appreciating whatever performance, but it's so much performance rather than all-inclusive that they're in it, that they'll sit silent until the end and they'll give their round of applause.
I know.
And there's been times that I've been singing and I'll get 2 verses into the song and I'm just not getting any response back.
Yeah.
And I'll almost want to say, excuse me, am I bothering you?
And that's why it's so important that we have locals attending the shows as well, because it's that very thing. We're tapping our foot, we're giving the respect, but we're in it. We're just as much engaged, even though we're not on stage.
And
too.
some phrases for that would be if the fiddler's coming onto or singing, and that is Suas E, which is the name of this, right?
It is,
this series, Suas E. And Suas E is another one. If it would be a man playing in that,
right?
I kind of give it to our old man in that day. And my dad, just in English, my dad would always be hollering if the fiddler was doing really well. It'd be come back on her. It'd always be hollering. Then I remember that as a kid.
And if we have a female fiddler, I want to give a shout out to proper equal distribution of.
You probably where batach means. Old man, right? And it can be said in fun. Like I'll meet somebody my age or a bit older, and I gotta have a good enough relation with them. But I'll say, "Come down you avati," and that day, "How are you, old man?" kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't use it with an old man kind of thing at the same time.
Right.
And
Gotcha.
the female equivalent would be cailleach, right?
Yeah.
And cailleach can mean hag as well. So you wouldn't say for an old woman, you would say an old woman Sean Vodanach, right? You wouldn't say, oh, the cailleach over there. But older women can use it teasing one another.
Okay.
Right?
Fair
like
enough.
that.
Right.
So you wouldn't tolerate Suas E. Cailleach, because you're insulting the person.
Yeah, I would.
Chances are you'd say either girl or woman.
Okay.
So for girl it would be Suas E. Nian. Suas E. Nian. And if it was someone who you like, I would say a Nian to you, right? And that. But if it was somebody older, I might say a ven. Suas E. ven, just for a woman.
Got to be politically correct these days, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been just so enlightening and tough to leave.
Good to be with you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so
your
much
ears
for
are
coming.
probably sore from all the talking I do.
No, I love it. I'm going to do that. I think we should all be, I always tell my fiddle students, look, just surround yourself in fiddle music and develop that ear, and that's just prime advice for
and we had spoken before about musicians. I found musicians some of the easiest people to teach simply because they've got such great hearing. And what is music but you're listening for particular sounds, and then you're trying to repeat those same things.
Yes.
And that's what language is all about. Yeah. So for all musicians out there especially, get into Gaelic, you're halfway there kind of thing by having the ear tuned into it. Yeah.
Well, there you go. To get yourself immersed in culture, go with that. Thank you so much.
Definitely. And
And thank you. We'll end today with a clip from Lewis MacKinnon, who was one of Celtic Colours 2010's Artist in Residence. He'll be discussing the tradition of Gaelic song in Cape Breton. Our 2010 concert, Making Songs, a Gianach Oren, was the result of a project we had undertaken to encourage the creation of new Gaelic songs and poetry. Lewis MacKinnon is both a poet and songwriter. He is guiding this project along with Cape Breton songwriter Goiridh Dòmhnullach and Gaelic singer Mary Jane Lemond.
Well, it's important because Gaelic song is a very wonderful part of the Gaelic tradition here in Nova Scotia, in particular here in the North Shore. There's a long tradition of Gaelic singing. There was a group called the North Shore Gaelic Singers, and so you can see behind me here a composition and some notes that are going along with a song that is in honor of those who were involved in the North Shore Gaelic Singers group. So it's very much a part of the community here, and people are very proud, and they look with fondness and fond memories of those who were involved in the North Shore Gaelic Singers. Their songs and their life stories were all about the local community, about funny moments, about working the land, working the sea, about characters, funny incidents with animals on the farm. All of these things were embodied their song corpus. So for that reason, it's a very wonderful project, and it touches right at the heart of the community here in the North Shore. Well, we're seeing certainly a renewed interest in communities where people are wanting to reconnect with Gaelic language, and you encounter oftentimes people who say that their parent, their grandparent, a relative spoke Gaelic, and so many people have a connection to Gaelic language in the province, and so we're starting to see a learner community emerge, and in that community we're seeing people create new things, and that's what a living language and culture is about. It's about creativity, it's about expression, whether it be through song, whether it be through dance, whether it be through musical expression or stories. And so creating new Gaelic songs is a very much a natural thing in terms of a living language and culture. And so I think it is important for people to feel that they can create something new in their language, in the language of their community. So for that reason, this project is special and unique, and it really reinforces community identity and sense of place.